After convenient sampling, our next sampling method is the purposive sampling. Purposive sampling is a non-probability research method where a researcher intentionally selects. This is not on the basis of convenience. There are some intentions. Selects participants based on their specific traits, knowledge or experiences to meet the study's objective. There are some specific traits, knowledge. There is purpose of selecting that particular person, their traits, their knowledge, their experiences to meet the study's objective, also known as selective or judgmental sampling. Purposive sampling is known as selective or judgmental sampling. It's a strategy for choosing the most informative subjects for a specific research question, rather than a random representation of a broader population. It is particularly useful in qualitative studies. Qualitative studies, like for example, we have to do a survey on the impact of educational outcomes on students' mental health. This is a qualitative study. This is not quantitative study. You have to select your qualitative data and then you have to analyze it deeply, in depth, by with the help of several methods. You can imply questionnaires, you can imply survey methods, you can do observations, you can do case studies, you can find their historical background data. You can implement so many things for gaining a deeper understanding. And small scale research, where in-depth understanding is prioritized over broad generalizations. Then comes our quota sampling, as this is shown in the figure below. Quota sampling क्या होता है? This is our quota. ठीक है, quota male above 50. We have made a standard quota male above 50. So we will not consider male below 50. We will consider the males above 50, that is 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Quota sampling is a non-probability sampling technique. Non-probability sampling, there is not much probability because the data will be generalized on the basis of some standards and rules. Okay, that involves dividing a population into subgroups, strata, and then recruiting participants for each subgroup until a predetermined quota is reached. This method is used to ensure that the final sample reflects the proportions of key characteristics, like age, gender, or income found in the target population. While it is a quicker and more affordable method than probability sampling and guarantees representation of certain groups, it relies on researcher judgment. Which can introduce bias. है ना? If the quota sampling standards are difficult to measure or to get, then it can introduce bias. But if they are easy, and if they are matching the standards, then it will be an easy technique, which can introduce bias and limits the generalizability of the results compared to random sampling. Then we have purposes of sampling, that is the major topic of our presentation, that is the purposes of sampling. The purposes of sampling is to select a representative subset of a population to study, enabling researchers to make accurate and reliable inferences about the entire group more efficiently and cost effectively. By studying a sample, researchers can gain insights, test hypotheses, and understand the characteristics of a large population without the impossible task of collecting data from every single individual. The purpose of sampling is to select a representative subset of a population. First one is for the study. If there is a good data set, and you have to study the population, enabling researchers to make accurate and reliable inferences about the entire group more efficiently and cost effectively. By studying a sample, researchers can gain insights, test hypotheses, and understand the characteristics of a large population without the impossible task of collecting data from every single individual. This is the same as we have already understood. Okay, systematic sampling. Okay, definition of systematic sampling. Advantages of systematic sampling. It is mentioned here in brief. What are the advantages of systematic sampling? Systematic sampling, as we have already understood, the total population upon the sample size, which will give you the result. For example, 1000 upon 100 gives you 10, and that 10 will be the kth element, and what you have to do is you have to select the every 10th member from the group. You have to choose the every 10th member from the group. There is not certain criteria mentioned or rules mentioned. There is the standard 10 number with, and whoever the person, you have to select that 10th person. This is known as systematic sampling. And the advantage of systematic sampling are reduced bias. Bias will be reduced as there are norms, there are standards, there will be no biasness. We will go as per our norms and standards. Vulnerable to sampling bias. This is vulnerable to sampling bias. It will create and open the paths, so many paths for the students or for the researchers. So it will reduce the sampling bias. Again, the same thing, greater risk of data manipulation. Advantages. How it can be an advantage? Advantage of systematic sampling: greater risk of data manipulation. So it limits the greater risk of data manipulation. This is the advantage of systematic sampling. There is no greater risk of data manipulation. Handling non-random sampling frames. It will handle non-random sampling frames. Non-random sampling frame means again the same thing. Rules are there, and you have to handle the sampling frames. You have to select the sampling frame as per the criteria of different methods. It is simple to use. How it is simple to use? Systematic sampling has the criteria, and you have to apply this criteria to the research process. You have to apply those procedures and methods to the field, and you will get your answer. Cluster selection. Cluster selection is different. Cluster selection means here, for example, in the convenience sample, there is cluster selection. In systematic sampling, there is cluster selection, because every 10th member, there is cluster selection. Cost effectiveness. Then disadvantages of sampling. What are the major disadvantages of sampling? The primary disadvantages of systematic sampling are bias. If the population list has a hidden pattern or a periodicity that aligns with the sampling interval, the population list has a hidden pattern or periodicity that aligns with the sampling interval. अगर कुछ भी थोड़ी बहुत इधर उधर होती है, या फिर पीरियोडिसिटी को कंसिडर नहीं किया जाता है, या फिर लिस्ट गलत बनती है, तो ये सब क्या हो जाते हैं, कुछ ऐसे फैक्टर्स हो जाते हैं जो लिमिट कर देते हैं हमारे सैंपल को अच्छा सैंपल होने में. या फिर डिफिकल्टी इन ऑब्टेनिंग अ कंप्लीट एंड एक्यूरेट सैंपलिंग फ्रेम and the risk of unrepresentative samples if the population has non-random or clustered characteristics. Clustered characteristics है, non-random है, clustered characteristics है, फिर बहुत सारे standards है, बहुत सारे norms है. हमें short, crisp, बहुत ही concise norms और standards चाहिए for creating a sample. ठीक है. It also requires knowledge of the total population. We should have the total knowledge of the population size to determine the interval, and may not be suitable for studying very large population. It cannot be suitable for studying very large populations or rare occurrences. So our method should be very suitable as per the data set or as per our requirements. ठीक है. Potential for bias. This is the first disadvantage. Like, there is a potential for bias. If there is a periodic pattern means after periodic pattern. If there is a periodic pattern in the population list that matches the sampling interval, the sample may not be representative. For example, a pattern of man, woman, man, woman. If there is a pattern of man, woman in a list, could lead to an all male or all female sample if the interval is chosen poorly. So what we have to consider is our sample pattern and the periodicity are the two things which we should majorly and very carefully use. Then it requires a complete sampling frame. The sampling frame should be complete, not truly random. It should not be truly random. Here what it means, although it starts with a random selection, the subsequent selection is systematic. There should not be random selection 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have not to select the whole population. You have to select it thoroughly with the use of your potential standards, not purely random. It should not be purely random. or without any judgments or without any selection criteria. This can lead to less generalizable results than simple random sampling in some cases. Not suitable for all population. Not every method is suitable for every kind of population. It requires a detailed judgment and detailed analysis through which we can analyze which method will be suitable for a population or for selecting the particular sample. For example, systematic sampling works best when the population is naturally random. Systematic sampling is best used when the population is naturally random. And naturally random, or when there is no discernible pattern. If there is no pattern, naturally random, then systematic sampling works well. Naturally random. Okay. That means here they want to say that the systematic sampling works best when the population is naturally random or simple, you can say, when there is no discernible pattern, not a tough pattern of population. Because before getting the sample, we have to make a filtered population as well. Then we will select a sample, or that filtered population can be said as a sample. It is less effective for studying populations with uneven distributions or when studying rare occurrences. Difficulty with very large populations. Systematic sampling is, as it is mentioned here in the disadvantages, difficulty with very large population. Creating a complete and accurate list for extremely large populations can be a significant practical challenge. Limiting the applicability of systematic sampling such as the major characteristic of sample should be that it should be concise, it should not be very big, and limiting the applicability of systematic sampling in such cases. Then risk of missing clusters. If the characteristics of interest are clustered in specific areas of the population list, a systematic sample might miss these areas entirely, resulting in an incomplete picture. Importance of systematic sampling. The need and importance are something similar. Feasibility and efficiency, cost effectiveness, time saving, reliable, valid conclusions, improved data quality, manageable data analysis, enhanced focus on subgroups, ethical consideration, foundation for further research.